It is, to my mind, a very important historic documentation of traditional architecture in the Wancho villages of Arunachal Pradesh. I have known Tara since a long time now, more than 20 years, I think. And I met her when she was doing her tall story competition, where she was recording the stories of various tribal community in the central India. And then she had come to IGRMS. Now, Indira Gandhi Rashtriya Manav Sangrahalaya is an attempt to conserve or document the indigenous architecture in a major way. So they have like 125 acres of land, and they have got these various people to come and construct there. Culture by its very nature keeps changing, and even if we talk about conservation on the site and we talk about conservation of the villages, how can one deny the advent of modernity to them? It's a very thin path. So there have been several methods of talking about this, because the loss of vernacular architecture, or vernacular architecture is not the right word, indigenous architecture or traditional architecture, is throughout the world the decimation of, or the changes have been so fast that the loss of indigenous architecture or local architecture or traditional architecture has been very, very fast. And UNESCO has taken cognizance of this, and they talk about large cultural regions and or cultural landscapes. And I think one should look at what UNESCO says a little more in detail. And because the UNESCO agenda is global, the project that Tara has done here, to my mind, that stands a very, very good chance of getting recognition as a cultural landscape area. And now what good would that do, I don't know, but that draws the attention of the state government and the central government and everything. And there are certain rules to conserving it. So documentation, nevertheless, is one of the most baseline action to take, even if we are talking about conservation in future. And the kind of documentation that has been done, so she is a researcher and very methodical, and I think one can think in terms of her writing methodology as to how she went around doing it, what was the first step, what was the second step, and then all that. So methodology is also extremely important, how you document. Culture is also very ephemeral. You know, what you say, the language is extremely important. So in her documentation, every beam and pillars and columns and everything has to have a local name plus the generic name. So what do you call a column, what do you call a beam, etc. Which has come out informally in her video films that she made. So, and there is a strong relationship between indigenous architecture and languages. If you lose architecture, you lose language. If you lose language, then you lose architecture and the whole way of living and being. So, with this concern is not new. This concern of conservation is very old, and people have been struggling since ages, since decades, as to how to do conservation. There are two qualities that UNESCO talks about. One is integrity and one is authenticity. Now this is authentic, and there is integrity, means how much percentage of the cultural landscape is authentic, done by the people in that region. And integrity of a cultural region depends on how much of it you still have it. So if we make a larger plan of this region, and we say that what is the authenticity and what is the integrity of the indigenous architecture, I think from the video that I've seen, it appears to be very high, and it qualifies to be a very nice cultural landscape and worth presenting it to UNESCO for future recognition, which gives a little status to the place. And a conference which was held, could I have that conference? So So this conference was held, this is India's interest in preserving the vernacular architecture. And so this conference was held in Bhopal, and it was called, this is a South Asian, the representatives from across South Asia were there. And we had, a charter was made. Now this charter of how to conserve was made, and I think I will leave a copy here, because the charter talks about 12 parameters on which the conservation can take place. And of course documentation is the baseline thing, and then how do you protect, which is already very authentic and which has all the integrity and authenticity. But one also talks about it is not going to last, like in the film itself. One of the senior older person is saying how things have changed. He's sitting in a traditional building. He's sitting in an authentic Wancho house, and he says, oh, it is not the same, it has changed so much. We used to talk about much bigger pillars and columns. It was there in the film. So even he, who is sitting in an authentic place, thinks things have changed. So things are bound to change. There is no way that you cannot stop the change to come in. But I think one should also think in terms of adaptation. Adaptation is also an extremely important area. And so how do you adapt it to modern living? Which does not mean that you give up your the material. Material has a feel to it. And material is also something which gives character to the building. It's not just about character, it is also about how comfortable it plays out in what you wear, it plays out in what you eat, it plays out on everything that you do. But there is, so adaptation is something that has to be processed very slowly, but in great depth as to what kind of adaptation we are talking about of indigenous architecture. When you are talking about conservation, you have to process each point in great detail and look at it. Research is the basis of everything. It should be well researched. Otherwise, it becomes cliché, and we end up buying all the things that the big factories are trying to sell us. They have far greater funds, they have far greater push, they spend so much money on advertising, and it is not difficult to fall for all that. So how do you kind of find a path where this continues to survive alongside all the development? Then there is a context and sustainability, and in terms of sustainability, indigenous architecture can really win over. There has to be a small committee which is formed. If this is taken as an important issue, and if we take conservation of the architecture seriously and say, listen, this is our culture, this is me, my identity, and we want to conserve it. So among the community itself, we have to sit and think about it and work out a process. Although, there are people who have worked on it since a long time, and you can always draw from what they say. Also awareness. I come from Bhopal, and I would just not have understood what is in store here if I had not seen films, and if I had not known what Tara was doing. If I did not know Tara, I would never have thought about coming to Arunachal Pradesh. So if I were to sit in Bhopal and think of holidaying somewhere, I have still thought of Bali, and I go to Bali, and I go to Thailand, and I go to these various places to look at things which are just exist here. So that's the kind of competition which exists. How do you kind of make your stand and make your visibility of all the good things that exist? Whether you want it or not is also something that one has to process. What happens if tourists come? What happens if a lot of people come? What happens to the culture, etc.? But that is for everyone to sit here. It belongs to all of us. It belongs to the world, but it also belongs primarily to the people here. It belongs to the Wancho community, and they have to think most of the time as to what you are going to do with it. And again, I would like to thank Tara she is so tough when she determines to do something, she just does it, whether there is funding, whether there is no funding, whether there is a road to the place, there is no road to the place. And I have gained so much from all the hard work that she has put in over years. Congratulations for having her, having her coming here and then taking it to the world, because she's also a conduit. She will go to London and show it there.